Have you ever felt like you're drowning in debt? Have you felt resentful, maybe defeated, because you thought you should be further ahead by now? In this episode of the Freedom Seeker Show, my friend, freelance writer and editor Brittany shares with us how she paid off almost $25,000 in only 2.5 years on a very modest income. Here we go. Welcome.
Thank you.
To this little party on our beautiful sunny Calgary morning. Not so
Still
hot
morning.
yet, we're learning.
Yeah, it's not so bad outside.
It's good. So we have Brittany with us today, and I am very excited for you to be here because we have been working together for a bit now. Brittany is a writer and editor. And where are you originally from here? Or
Yeah, I'm originally from Calgary, born and raised. Yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah, it is actually. Everyone's from somewhere else here.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.
So let's start with just a brief little history of what got you into writing?
Oh man, I've always liked writing. When I was a little kid, I was always writing stories and making stuff up, and I ended up graduating high school and I just still wanted to write. That's what I really wanted to do. So I just did my English degree, and I just hoped that by the end I would have figured out what to do with it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've just always loved reading and writing, and I think you can put things into words that you can't say sometimes, you know, and you can't show sometimes. So
Oh, that's
I
beautiful.
like doing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
You certainly are a really great writer.
Thank you.
Certainly enjoy your readings, which is one of the ones that brought this conversation about. Brittany wrote a blog post. Do you have a blog site where you post regularly?
Not really, no. This was just an article I wrote for this website.
Yeah,
So I want to
that's
start
really
one, but
Well, get going on
Yeah,
that
I
so
will.
we can refer people to your blog post. But what I wanted to explore a little bit deeper with you is your journey through what sounded like financial hell.
Oh, it was pretty bad. Yeah.
And, most of us can probably relate to this because we have all come from some form of post-secondary education, put ourselves into a huge amount of debt, and only to find out at the end of it, I love how you put it in here, you were the queen of, as long as it can be put on my charge card, I can have it.
Yes.
And then suddenly we find ourselves in that predicament once we graduate from university, kind of reality kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now in the situation of like, good God, there isn't a job out there
Yes.
that will pay off these loans as quickly as we accumulated them. So
Yeah.
that is what I'd love
exactly
to.
what happened to me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your path from the crippling student loan debt to your financial freedom today.
Yeah, it was a wild one. During university, as I said in my article, I kind of put all bad thoughts about my money on the back burner. I had a student loan, so I thought, as long as that's still there, life is good.
It'll take care of me.
Yeah, and I put stuff on my credit card. I had an automatic payment on my credit card for somewhere near the minimum amount so that it was taken care of. And I never looked at the balance. I never opened online banking. And I think, like most things in life, the longer I put it off, the more scary it became. It became this huge thing. And sometimes I'd even go to the site and I wouldn't sign in because I just didn't want to, I didn't even want to go there. And I think,
talk about avoidance, hey?
yeah. And at the time, I always find this funny when I hear, especially self-help specialists talk about the power of positive thinking, because I remember learning about, if I just think positively about this, I'll be good. So I used to tell myself, you've got this, like, it's under control, everything is fine. And it worked. I really believed I was okay until I graduated, and I finally looked at it, and it wasn't pretty. So, but yeah, since then, I was able to pay off around $25,000 worth of debt on not a very big paycheck. And
Which
of course
is amazing. So what
yeah.
kind of timeline are we talking about since you graduated?
It took about 2.5 years to pay it all off. Wow. Yeah.
That's still fast.
It was a lot.
Like, that's really fast. So I want to talk about that. You called it the financial fasting or money fasting?
Yes. The site that I wrote for is called andthenwesave.com, and it's really good. And she, the girl herself, paid off about the same amount that I had. So that kind of caught my attention.
Right.
And she called it a debt diet.
The debt diet. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd love to explore that a little bit more. Before we go there, can you tell us a little bit about some of the stresses that you were facing? Because you were describing in your article one of those months where your mom had to bail you out. You were ashamed. You were your boyfriend. Still your boyfriend?
Yes.
Fantastic. He didn't leave you through those
No,
times.
he was very patient with me.
Your boyfriend was patient with you, but you were just not, you were bitter. You described yourself as being very bitter. Can you tell us what was going on?
I think when I graduated, I had my English degree, which is a hard degree to go out and just start making money. So I ended up going back to my job at a bank, the same job I had before my degree, and as a data entry clerk. So I felt pretty bad about that. I wasn't moving up in the world. Like, now I had all this debt, and I had this very expensive piece of paper, and I was still just working, slogging through my job. And so the bitterness was interesting. It just grew and grew, and it seemed to take over everything. Like, I was bitter. I got bitterly jealous of other people who were making it further than I was. You know, people who got their engineering degrees, and they were now an engineer, and I was sitting there as my data entry clerk. And it's sort of that shame that I'm sure everybody feels when someone says, hey, what are you doing with your life now? And you haven't gotten to the place you wanted to. And so you have to say, oh, I'm working at the bank as a data entry clerk. And so I kept on bringing myself down to the way I spoke about myself and to myself. The money problem was really, it was sort of more the surface problem for where I wanted to be in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotional stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, I can relate to that. And like you said, probably lots of people can, because unless you graduate from a degree that promises a very high paying entry-level position coming out of school, such as maybe an engineer, such as maybe doctor, or I mean, granted, they also go to school way longer and accumulate way more debt than we, but I remember that feeling as well when I graduated. It was like, you have this degree that is not very tangible, because an arts degree, I have a business degree, like, now what?
Now you're in business.
now we're in business. The doors are open. What do we have to sell? Totally, right? Yeah. But whereas when you're an accountant, you know, and I felt that same jealousy almost, right? Looking at my my peers that graduated with a more defined degree, like an accountant or whatever. And I always wished, God, I wish I had done something like that, because then at least I knew what I needed to do.
Yes.
So I can relate to that. So there's a lot of stress coming out of university and a lot of pressure. And then you add the endless phone calls from people you owe money to.
Yes.
And that very quickly makes you want to not log into your online banking site or answer your phones anymore.
Yeah. I could see even from the age I was how quickly you can just end up owning a bunch of things and buying things to make yourself feel more powerful. Because I was doing that on a small scale. I'd go out for dinner all the time, even though I didn't know I knew I didn't have any money for it.
You're trying to reward yourself.
Yeah,
right?
it really is a bit of a black hole. It's like, it's sort of, I think, the same as if you gain a lot of weight, right? Like, there's this mental battle you're always facing where you think, I deserve something in this moment, now I work hard, versus I shouldn't be spending anything because I don't have any money. It's hard to overcome that inner battle.
Right. And so that was one of those switches I really gravitated to in your article, because you said your biggest lesson was that you felt you had to say no to all the things you wanted to say yes to, when really all you had to find was your right yes.
Yes.
And I love that part of it. So let's talk first about the diet that you went on.
Okay,
and what did that look like?
So the site, Anna, the woman who runs the site, she went on a very, very strict diet where she didn't, like, it got all the way down to, like, here's how to dumpster dive to find food if you really want to, right? Like, how to save money in every possible way. So I didn't do it quite that much of it. I found that you just have to apply it to your own life, right? So I found ways to save a lot of money. For instance, I was lucky. In many ways, we're just lucky. My parents are very supportive of me. So I was able to live in their house for a little while. And then when I met my boyfriend, We moved out together. He already had a car that was paid off, so I could just not have a car. So transportation costs were pretty much nil. Yeah, I called my cell phone company and I told them to lower my rate, and I got rid of all the bells and whistles on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I sold a lot of stuff that I had that I just wasn't using.
Good.
I found the more I got rid of on sort of a more minimalist kind of avenue, the more I got rid of helped, because once your mentality is getting rid of the things you have, it's hard to go out and shop and buy more of what you just got rid of, right? So that really helped, actually. But yeah, I didn't have cable, got a cheap apartment. I made a lot of presents. Gifts are hard because you feel like you should spend money on people. So that was a thing. Some pretty ugly presents out there for people. Yeah, and the debt diet is funny because it's sort of like any kind of diet in that it's not sustainable. It's not built to be sustainable. It's built to get something done. So it was built to pay off the debt. But halfway through I kind of thought I need to find a sustainable way to continue something like this.
So were you on this diet for the 2 years that it took you to pay this off?
No, I was only on the diet for, I don't know, I sort of filtered it. I would say probably only 8 or 9 months. And in 8 or 9 months, it made such a huge difference. But I found that, like, what I had done is made a rule, like, no eating food out. And I love food, and I love eating food out. And when I did eat food out, I would binge on food out. Like, I would have a month where I'd just fall off the wagon. I'd spend so much money. So
is that right?
Yeah, so I thought I have to find a more sustainable way. So I gave myself like $60, and I was like, there, enjoy this $60. Like, spend it wisely. Don't just spend it on any food out. Spend it on like a really, really nice meal with people that you love.
I find that interesting. So you've noticed the same thing as what we've been reading about in actual diets, like meal diets.
Yes.
That when you deprive yourself of something, you want it more, or then you fall off the wagon, so to speak, rather than moderation.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think placing any really strict rules on your life that feel unnatural to you, you can do them for a while, and the debt diet, it was worth it. I paid off a lot of money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you still need to live and enjoy your life.
Amen to that. Amen. That's what this is all about,
Yeah,
is to learn your freedoms so that you can enjoy them, obviously. And the big part of freedom is the enjoyment, right?
Yes.
That's fantastic. So you paid off your debt in 2 years. You went on a strict diet, but not for the entire 2-year period. You did that for about a year, maybe a little less than a year.
Yeah.
And then what changed?
And then, as I was paying it off, I think it really caught momentum. Suddenly I didn't feel like spending new money on clothes. Or money on new clothes. I didn't feel like eating out as much. I also found ways to exercise without spending too much money, and to see friends without spending too much money. And I'm a huge fan of hiking, so that's pretty free other than the gas to get you out there. So as time went on, it became less and less of a struggle. So I think that's maybe why I think the diet ended. Yeah. When maybe it was continuing in some form.
It became a lifestyle for you.
Yeah, it did. And to this day, I don't really feel like I need a lot of stuff. Yeah, after I paid off my debt, I just thought, okay, great. I paid off $25,000 in 2.5 years. I could have saved that. Like, that's what I thought. It was like, if I didn't have any debt, I could have saved that by now. Like, that's an enormous amount of money on my paycheck,
years?
Right? Yeah.
No doubt.
So I thought, you know what, like, especially on the low wage I was making, I thought, man, if I get a job that pays just a little bit more, and I'm able to continue exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to be doing pretty well for myself. So now I'm just looking at the future. I think I'm really like a future focused person, and yeah, I love the fact that your whole idea is called Freedom Seekers, because to be honest, I didn't understand that what I wanted was freedom for the longest time. I just knew what I didn't want. Mm-hmm. When you first make a change in your life, you think, I don't want this. I don't want debt. I don't want the stress of not knowing. I don't like math. I don't want to have to do math every month.
Yeah.
And what I discovered later was that what I really wanted was freedom from that. It's nice knowing that I can stick to a budget now, and I feel free. I don't feel like I'm stuck in like this vortex
regiment or anything like that. Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, that's good.
That is really good to hear, because I think that is often goes with the word budget. Like I've had conversations with other people on this, where they said, I hate the word budget because they attach restriction, regiment.
Yes.
You know, they I can see it in my mind's eye right now where they're sitting there with their glasses on and they're, you know, writing down every penny that they spend. And I was one of those people, you know, and similarly as you, through a minimalistic journey, I came out of that as well, and definitely have my priorities turned around.
Yeah.
That said, as I was preparing for our talk today, I thought, you know, I really loved your finishing on this article where you said, now I'm starting on a new journey. I decided to become an entrepreneur because you realized you wanted to make a little bit more money than what you were making in your previous position. And now you put yourself onto this diet again, but it's a different kind of diet today. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, I guess you need to know where your money is. And so now that I'm making more money, it's nice because I can go, okay, before my goal was to pay off $10,000 by a certain amount, and now my goal is to save $10,000. It's like a reverse diet.
Yeah.
It's I feel like I'm now building myself back up instead of just trying to get myself back to zero. You know, like it's such a better feeling, and I feel good about it because since I've been living on this effective budget for so long, I'm really good at knowing where my money is going. So I know exactly what I can live on. Like before, if someone said, how much do you spend on groceries per month? I would have no idea. How much do you spend on food out? How much have you spent on clothes? I would have no even inkling how much money I spend.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, and now I'm like, okay, I can give myself X amount of money a month, and I can absolutely live on that. And there's power in that knowledge. You know?
Huge, isn't there? So did you find there was relief?
Oh, so much relief. Right? Yes. Yeah. Even
just knowing what that number is, right?
Yes, and just being like, I can just send this to myself and everything else that I save is gravy. Like, that's just extra. Yeah. And instead of trying to put your money up to the next thing and the next thing and trying to get yourself to the next level, it's so much nicer to just think, this is what I can live on for now, and maybe one day that'll change and I can give myself more money, but even then I know I can come back to this.
There's a lot of freedom in knowing that your two hands and, you know, your head on your shoulders are enough for you to survive. You know, as long as I've always said, as long as I have my two hands and my brain, I can survive. Exactly. You know, and the true minimalist. The fear can go away because it's this fear. I personally believe it's this fear of not enough that is actually spinning us into these debt cycles and into this, you know. And then of course there's the whole other subject of mindfulness when, you know, when we're out there filling our cup with materialistic things versus truly taking a look inside and understanding what does fill my cup. And it doesn't have to cost money, you know. It could be as simple as backpacking through the Rockies and pitching your tent somewhere and really getting back to nature, and that costs, like you said, very little, right?
That's very true. Yeah.
So you said something that I think is absolutely fundamental for any business, for any entrepreneur, but also for any business owner to really start catapulting into their business, and that is, what do you actually need to make in order to make your business work, right? So how did you come to that? Was that part of your program that you took with Anne, or?
Not even. It was, I think since I'm a sole proprietor, it makes things kind of simple. I've been living the same lifestyle now for a few years, since I've sort of weaned myself off the diet and sort of more onto level footing. And so I thought, okay, here's what I make at my current salary position. I bet you I can do more. And from the salary position, I already had this whole thing set up where it's like I pay myself $2,000 a month for everything, including the money that I save every month is wrapped up into that. So I thought, okay, other than that, it's sort of just emergency money. It's extra savings. It's extra money I can invest. So all I had to do really was set a wage that made sure that I was at least meeting that exact amount.
Perfect.
So that I could just continue. I didn't even have to make a big jump. The only thing I had to do, of course, every entrepreneur, I think, probably experiences this when you just have more costs than you thought to like set up a website, to get everything going and order business cards and make a logo. Those things sort of came out of left field a bit. But because I've been down this road so many times, even if I overspent for a couple of months, I knew I could just
those are
get
investments,
back,
right?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
they are being written off as exactly that. They're
Yeah.
investments in your business, they're expenses. But you worked your way backwards. So you knew what you wanted to make, or what you needed, I should say, what you needed to make
Yes.
to survive.
Yeah.
And then you worked backwards from there. And you said, if I hit this every month, I'm okay.
Yes.
And then the goal becomes, to maybe up that by a little bit and so on and so forth. So you're growing your business.
It does take the stress out too when you know exactly what you need, because you don't have that feeling of scarcity where you think,
Yeah.
oh man, like I need to make more.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I already know I'm making enough. So anything extra is exactly that. It's extra. It's nice knowing that is extra and that I have decided that it's extra. And not
And that
wrapping
goes
it into my
into a separate account for your
Yeah,
savings.
yeah,
Or are you pretty good with handling your money in the same account?
I have my personal checking savings and I open my business checking savings. So I just pay myself into my business, and then I pay myself out of my business every month. So I just give myself lump sum in the
Good.
and then
Yeah.
so right now, as I said in my article, now I'm just trying to save enough money where I know I can live for 6 months if the worst should happen. And then after that, I think my next plan would just be to invest that money, and then maybe if it's going so well that I'm kind of like blown away by the amount of money I'm making, then I can start to pay myself more every month.
What I'd like to get back to, if we could for a moment, is how did you arrive at knowing how much you needed to spend a month? Did you sit down? I think you said, you sat down with a bottle of Merlot and you just figured out where your money was going, how much you were spending. And then my next question to that would be, did you just radically cut that in half? Or did you go with what it was that you were spending and then try to live within that?
I actually found a very concrete way of doing this, because I'm not a very concrete thinker, so I felt like I needed some kind of paradigm. So I found this really helpful graph. I think it's a pretty generally recognized graph of 5 different sections in your life and how much you should be spending percentage-wise of your income on each one. So I think it was 35% on your housing. So that includes if you own a house, your mortgage, your property taxes, everything to do with your house. For renting, it's your rent, utilities. 15% on transportation was a big one. 15% on paying down your debt. 10% was saving. And then the last 25% was everything else. So like your food, your cell phone bill. What I did when I had to face the truth of my spending was I actually took the last 6 months of spending. So I really had to face the truth and see exactly how much I was spending in each category. Did it fit that graph?
The percentages that they were suggesting.
Yeah. So then that's how you realize where you're really spending all your money. So mine was sneaky because I was floored, shocked by the amount I was spending. I didn't think it was that much. It turns out it was on little coffees, like going to Starbucks and buying a $5 coffee here, a $5 coffee there. You do that 5 times a week and suddenly it's, it adds up. So I decided to do the calculation. So I made X amount of money. What does that mean for 35%, 25%, 10%, 15%?
Right.
So I was looking at it and I thought, now I can change it to make it make sense to me. So for instance, 15% was not enough for my debt. I wanted to pay off way more than that. So I thought
that was your priority.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm only spending 25% on my housing, for instance, my rent and utilities. So you know what? I think I can even move somewhere and make that 20%. Perfect. So I'm saving 15% there. And
but those other
transportation's
percentages
tiny,
had
right?
to be cut down on other things.
So to tweak, right?
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, okay, now basically what I was spending on other was about 50 to 60% of my paycheck, which I'm sure is actually fairly usual with people. You just end up spending money on stuff. So it was that initial graph, and I thought, okay, this makes sense, but it doesn't make sense really to my life.
To what you wanted to accomplish at that point in time as well.
But it was a really good starting place.
But it's a good start. Yeah, good starting spot.
For me, I would say if anyone wants to go on a debt diet, that's a good way to do it, is just first you have to figure out what you've done in the past, and that's probably the hardest part. That's where you need the bottle of Merlot, because it's a rough truth to
I love it.
to look at sometimes, especially if you're a very giving person. So high percentage.
Yeah, well, if you look at it from a housing perspective, I mean, our highest cost of living, our highest expense is our cost of living, which is housing and groceries.
Yeah.
But that said, I loved what you said about everyone wants to have more money in their pocket, whatever the goal is. But you need to, I think for any change, you need to always figure out first, where am I starting from, right?
Yeah.
And taking that deep look, and yes, choose whatever brand of wine you like best, and actually be honest with yourself and do the math, right? And then you can make the according adjustments that you may need to make.
Well, and going back to like how saying no is saying yes to some things, just take a look at what on a deeper level, past money and all of the math involved. What are you saying yes to? What do you want people to see you as? What are you trying to accomplish right now? And is that actually what you want in your life? I think having done my English degree, a lot of my family, they're in science, a lot of my friends are in science. I felt this big need to just show everyone that I was doing good. So I was spending money to try to, I think, show them this. It was not a lot of thought went into it. It was just sort of an instinct, I think. It's like a defensive instinct to myself as well, so that I could think I did a good thing. This was a good choice. I didn't
wasn't
make
a waste of time. Exactly.
And so halfway through the debt diet, I think I realized that I was trying to say yes to things that didn't really matter. What I wanted people to see in me was someone who, is strong, can take care of herself. I can maybe go on a trip around the world and do the things I care about. And so once I figured out the kind of person I wanted to be, it made it a lot easier to cut out those things. I'd go to spend money and I'd think, is this fulfilling what the kind of person I want to be?
Yes, I completely agree. I love the points that you brought up. Thank you so much for sharing that information.
Thank you for having me over. This is beautiful, this whole sunny day.
I know our season is so short here, so I'm really trying to get as many interviews on this patio in as we can before the snow hits the ground. And just glancing at my notes, because I really wanted to make sure I asked you everything I needed to ask from your article. But I think let's just wrap it up again. The most important lesson you learned in that experience that you had about struggling with debt was to understand that you don't have to say no to all things. You just have to learn to say the right yeses.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then you sat down, you analyzed where your money was going, how much you were radically honest with yourself on where your money was going and how much of your paycheck.
Yes.
And then you went on to a radical diet to really pay off your debt. That was your number one goal. And since that happened, it shifted into using some of the same mythologies, I guess, that you used then, and applying them to your life now, but for different reasons or goals now. So now you're saving money for security, and now you're saving money to maybe take off and travel the world for a little while, and so on. So I think that's really fantastic. Anything I'm missing? Anything that you would like to say?
I think the only thing I'd want to say more is just the idea of not trying to be perfect, and for forgiving yourself a little bit. When I first looked at my spending, I was really mad at myself, and I didn't want to forgive myself for that. And it's just being able to, I like to think of it as being like a detective in my own life. I go back through my numbers. I still make myself do it every month, even though sometimes it doesn't feel so good. And to add it all up, because it really reminds me that all those $3 things, all those $5 things, they really add up fast. Forgiving yourself, moving on, and
be gentle with
don't let your
yourself.
Perfectionism just stop you.
Yeah,
completely.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really, really great advice.
Yeah.
Be gentle with yourself.
It's advice I received, and I would like to spread it to people who are in debt, because
we're welcoming that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's really fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And we'll have you back.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this really gorgeous day.
You as well.
Thank
It's
you.
beautiful.
Thank you so much, Brittany. The average household debt in North America is $22,000. That is not inclusive of your mortgage that you might be holding as well. So you see, you're not alone. If you want to know more about how you can become debt-free, visit www.andthenwesaved for more information on how Brittany got out of debt. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you care about. Thanks for following the Freedom Seeker Show. Until next time, keep on rockin'.